Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk to you about how to incorporate any new element into your playing. It could be new chord voicings, new scale movements, new rhythms, it doesn't really matter. It's just incorporating something that you're interested in, adding it into your playing, how we go about doing that. Now the reason I thought about talking about this today is because actually in 2 of my lessons this week, I've had a situation where I think in fact it was adding the tritone scale. I said to the student, let's just take a moment to focus on this tritone scale. And all I want you to do is spend a couple of minutes to just move between a C major scale and a D flat 7 scale in free time. And the student will go, okay. And that's it. Now the issue there, of course, is they just haven't given it enough time. And they expect to just go straight back into playing over a backing track or jamming with me and be able to do it. And of course, when we get to that point in the song, it doesn't happen. So what is a more methodical approach to adding these things into your playing? That's what I want to cover today. So the first and most important thing, and no one ever discusses this, it's really rare to hear people talk about this, but is mental rehearsal. So it doesn't matter again what the particular element is. Let's just stick to that example for the purposes of today's video. C major scale going to a D flat dominant scale or Mixolydian scale. You can rehearse that away from your instrument. It doesn't matter which instrument you play. You can do this on the bus, on the train, while you're washing the dishes. It doesn't matter. But just trying to visualize in your mind's eye, moving from that scale, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like on your instrument, to the other scale, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like on the instrument. Trying to train your inner ear and your mind's eye to see and hear these things. It's really, really difficult to do. And people have different visualization skills, of course, we're all built differently. But if you can see it in your mind's eye and you can virtually play it in your head, that is such a huge advantage. It is not just about trying it once or twice on your instrument and then being annoyed that it doesn't fit over a backing track. You've got to really marinate these ideas. I used that word the other day, someone liked that. You've got to marinate on these ideas. You've got to really meditate on these ideas for days, weeks, months, and in some cases years until it comes out naturally in our playing. That's the old Michael Brecker quote, which I've used over and over on this channel. It took Brecker 6 months to organically make these ideas come out in his playing, so it's going to take us longer because we're not a god like Michael Brecker was. So the next thing that we can do to start to incorporate these into our playing is to meditate on them on the instrument. This is something I did a huge amount growing up, and Jimmy Bruno talks about this a lot as well. It's just sitting down with the telly on, a YouTube video on, it doesn't matter, but just sitting down and just moving in free time between your C major scale just mucking around with those 2 scales or whatever the element is. It could be a chord movement, it could be a rhythm, of course. We underestimate how many times we need to do this, and we need to do it a lot, like half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, doesn't matter, that's why the telly's on. It doesn't have to be hugely focused at this point because it's more of a mechanical and visual thing, and we're just trying to find our way around the instrument. And of course you're going to come back to it the next day and find that you're playing nowhere near as interestingly as you were yesterday after 45 minutes, or you're nowhere near as confident. And that's what happens, of course. We go to bed and we kind of forget most of what we worked on today. And so the process starts again. We sit down with the telly on. You don't need to have the telly on, of course. You can just do this if you're focused enough. But of course, the telly really helps when you are a beginner as well, because you haven't quite developed that focus yet. But it will come. So you've just got to sit on one idea and just explore one idea for a substantial amount of time, whatever you currently consider that to be. Now, the next thing we can do to start to incorporate a specific element into our playing is to either find or build a very focused backing track. So again, in this instance, I would make myself a backing track of just C major to D flat 7, and I would just work on that backing track, and it's going to give me a little bit more of a framework now. I'm no longer in free time, I'm adding a bit of a pulse, and I can decide how frequently I want the chords to change. I'd probably start every 4 bars, move down to every 2 bars, and then every bar. And by this point, I'm probably starting to get quite confident with that particular element, whatever it might be. Now, the next thing I would try is incorporating this movement into a familiar tune. It's too much to take a brand new tune and expect to put a brand new element into it. There's just too much new stuff there. We want to fit it into a framework that we're really confident with. So if we can take a standard that we really, really like and we can play it in our sleep and use that as the framework into which we start to introduce new concepts, it's going to really, really help us understand them and understand better where we can put them. Then when we're tackling new tunes, we can start to build them from the ground up and incorporate them from the beginning. And finally, if at that point you're still not feeling hugely confident with whatever your new element is, then don't worry, these things do take time. However, you might want to sit down and compose some ideas. Joel Frahm talks about this a lot. If there's a challenging bit or a new element he wants to introduce, he will write 3, 4, 5 ideas that incorporate that, and they will become the foundation for his practice routine until they are fully incorporated, which again can take months. So next time you're trying to incorporate something new into your playing, don't just try it once or twice and then be frustrated that it doesn't work. We really need to meditate on these ideas and tackle them from lots of different directions. Just like if you're learning a new language, we don't just learn to read it. We need to learn to say it, we need to learn to hear it, and we need to learn to write it. And the combination of all of those with the topic of language in the middle, we're targeting it from lots of different angles. And that's going to build a far more vivid understanding of how to utilize that skill because we've seen it from all these different perspectives. So similarly, mental rehearsal, hugely important. Meditating on a very focused concept in free time on the instrument in a relaxed fashion. Putting a film on, you could sit and practice for 2 hours one element without kind of feeling like you've done 2 hours of practice. It's a really relaxed way of doing it. Thirdly would be playing over a very specific focused backing track. I wouldn't spend too long doing this because it's a bit too specific, it's a bit too niche, and we want to, as soon as possible, move on to the next step, which is incorporating it into real music, because, you know, real music doesn't tend to sit on one idea for too long. It's here and then it's gone before you know it. And then finally, composing some ideas, actually sitting down with pen and paper and writing down some interesting paths through whatever it is you're trying to tackle. And by doing all 5 of those, you're really getting that vivid picture, that really clear understanding of the new element, rather than just trying it once or twice and then being surprised that it didn't work. So I hope you found that one useful. Please do leave some comments down below with your own advice on how you incorporate these things into your playing. We all do this stuff differently. Those are the 5 that make sense to me. If you did find this one useful, please do give it a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and share with any of your friends who no doubt need a little bit of this advice as well, because I see this in a lot of students. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, you're drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to cope.